operation unit out of 6 is operational. We've got new video tonight posted to social media of the horrific aftermath of deadly Russian military strikes on a Cherniv apartment complex. CNN has geolocated and verified the authenticity of the video, and I warn you, this may be difficult to watch.
Аптека, блядь! Где? Блядь.
CNN's Michael Holmes is live in Lviv tonight. Caitlin Collins is at the White House, and that video is horrific. Hi, Michael. Hi, Caitlin. Michael, horrific video posted on social media. It's showing that aftermath of that Russian military strike that hit an apartment complex in Cherniv. A woman is heard screaming in that video. Kids, little kids, is what she's saying. So many civilians are victims of this war, even targeted. That's according to U.S. officials, correct?
Yeah, exactly, Don. I mean, that is so hard to watch. Russia denies it's targeting civilian infrastructure or civilians in general, but look at that. I mean, just look at it, listen to it. The pain in the voices that you hear there. This is a civilian target. It is horrific level of damage too. Whatever missile is involved there, it was a big one, maybe it was multiple. We're still trying to find out, and we're still trying to find out the casualties. But you see there clearly in the video, there are casualties. This has been the big fear all along, Don, that Russia's advance in this country, they probably thought they would do it a lot easier than they did. They haven't. They've been held up. The Ukrainians have fought back. They've fought hard. And then the Russians go to their playbook, and we've talked a lot about what they did in Grozny, in Chechnya, what they did in Aleppo, in Syria. They just go all out. They will bomb places into the Stone Age, and that is the big fear here. That because Putin's going to be frustrated at the lack of progress of his military, that he's going to turn to that playbook. That he feels he's got nothing to lose in a way, given how the world has turned and united in opposition to him and sanctioned him like no one's ever been sanctioned before. The pain for Russia of those sanctions is enormous, but what has it done? Has it stopped it? No. Have a look at that video again. Now, this the biggest city, the capital in this country. Russians, moving up around it. Will they do the same thing? Bomb, shell, soften it up for an entry into that city. It is just horrendous to look at that and imagine that this is happening anywhere, but it's happening here.
Michael, I want to talk to you about that nuclear power plant in Ukraine that is on fire tonight. A top Ukrainian official saying that the Russian army has been firing from all sides on the plant. Are you learning anything there on the ground?
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully things aren't as bad as they initially appeared. I mean, as you've been pointing out, this is Europe's largest nuclear power plant. I think it's one of the top 10 in the world in Zaporizhzhia. 6 reactors at that facility. Apparently only 1 is up and running at the moment, and that's probably a good thing. And yeah, you reported, and Anderson spoke to a plant spokesman who said that the fighting is now eased for now. And as you keep saying, and it's the most important thing to say, what we don't know is important. What we do know is the Ukrainian emergency services say the fire was in a training building. It's not a reactor. Ukraine is telling the IAEA that there is no change in radiation levels. They say the fire hasn't affected essential equipment. Plant personnel are working on what they are calling mitigating actions, and that firefighters are there. Obviously, there are still concerns for the safety of the plant overall, and as your experts have been saying, if cooling is interrupted for the reactors, for example, that would be a very big deal. You know, and as we've been saying, you know, your mind goes to 1986, Chernobyl, the disaster in this country. And it's outrageous and intensely disturbing that there is fighting around any nuclear reactor. And you can see the incoming fight. That is outrageous. The other thing too, Don, I mean, you know, if for some reason this plant has to shut down, it supplies a fifth of this country's electricity. And you can imagine the massive impact that would have on the lives of millions of Ukrainians.
Yeah, absolutely. To the White House now, Caitlin, I know the White House is monitoring. What's the response tonight?
Yeah, watching this very closely, obviously very concerned and wanted to assess what the impact of this could be. And we should note that within, very quickly of these reports coming in of the shelling happening, of the fire that was happening here, President Biden was on the phone with Ukrainian President Zelensky talking about this. After this, we did hear from two White House officials who said that they don't believe there are elevated levels of radiation. Of course, that is the number one concern. As soon as we heard the reports of this, the concerns about what this could mean. And so right now they're still monitoring it. Not only did President Biden speak with President Zelensky, but the Energy Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, also spoke with the Energy Minister there, her counterpart, to talk about this. She said they activated the nuclear response here, basically keeping an eye on what is going on to make sure that they can monitor it because, of course, the devastating impacts that could happen here if something were to go wrong are huge. And so that is why the White House was so quickly monitoring this. And we should note it wasn't just President Biden getting on the phone with President Zelensky. The British Prime Minister has spoken to him tonight talking about what the dramatic effects of something like this going wrong could be. But for right now, they are tamping down concerns about elevated levels of radiation and say they do not see that so far, Don.
Caitlin, I know the president spoke with President Zelensky, our president. Biden spoke with President Zelensky. Zelensky is pleading with the West for more help as part of what he said earlier.
If you don't have the strength to provide a no-fly zone, then give me planes. Would that not be fair?
So I know that the White House announced more sanctions today, Caitlin, but what about NATO supplying planes?
We haven't heard anything about planes exactly of what they would send in that sense. We know that they're still working on sending defense and sending lethal aid to Ukraine. That is something that yesterday they said they were still able to get across the border. It's become a lot more challenging to get that assistance to Kyiv than it was just about a month ago when they could easily fly things into Kyiv. Remember, the Pentagon was posting pictures of the aid that they were sending there. That is not as easy now as it was then, but there is still hope because they still can get it there. What they're really focusing on, not so much as that, they're sending those anti-aircraft, the Stinger missiles. Those are the ones that we were talking about, that they sent hundreds of them just in the last several days alone. I think it was about 200 on Monday. Those are ones that they believe could be pretty effective here because it only takes really one person to launch one. You launch it from the shoulder. It's a heat-seeking missile that they believe they can use to take down aircraft. So it either forces the aircraft to fly higher or they can easily take down Russian aircraft. And so that is what they've been talking about so far. They've ruled out the no-fly zone. They haven't said anything on sending planes to Ukraine. Of course, that would, it just raises a question of whether or not that is a step they're willing to take, as what we saw at the beginning of this show, the bombings and the videos that you are seeing of the civilian infrastructure that Russia is targeting, where you don't see any Ukrainian military in that area. These are civilian apartment buildings and orphanages and kindergartens that we've been talking about with U.S. officials. And so whether or not that changes the United States response, that remains to be seen. But you are right, that does come as today. They did announce more sanctions here at the White House on Russian oligarchs, on Putin's personal spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov. Whether or not there are more added to that list remains to be seen in the coming days.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Michael. And you're right, Michael, that video is just terrific and